Our guest today, Darren DeStefano, is a partner of Cooley out in Reston, Virginia. Darren and I used to work together at the SEC in the SEC's Division of Corporation Finance, and he's been doing deals for the last 2 decades. And recently he did a very interesting deal for Vital Farms, an IPO of a certified B Corp. I'm Brock Romanek, today on Zippy Point. So Darren, let's talk about the disclosure issues, because you've worked for decades on traditional IPO prospectuses, and now you're working on a certified B prospectus, something that's unique and novel. What are the disclosure issues? What sections of the prospectus are different in a way that you had to pause and rethink what you would normally do?
Sure, Brock. In consideration for the different fiduciary responsibilities, and that we did think was the most critical difference between a traditional Delaware corporation and a B Corp or public benefit corporation. We spent probably the biggest chunk of our energy on that. So within the risk factors, we spent some good real estate talking about this is how a board of directors fiduciary responsibilities differ in a public benefit corporation versus a traditional corporation, and particularly pointing out the fact that in consideration of the fact that the board is required to balance the interests of multiple stakeholders and multiple interests, and not just those stockholders, that there is heightened risk that in actually fulfilling the board's fiduciary duties, they may affirmatively elect to do something that's not in the best interest necessarily of stockholders. Now, that said, just a side note, it's not at all the board's intention to do things that aren't in the interest of stockholders. So I just want to make it clear that this isn't a situation where the board's going to not consider the interest of stockholders. In fact, it's still the primary consideration of the board, but they are required to balance these other interests. So we spent time focusing on that issue, and so that pops up in risk factors. In consideration for the significance of that issue, there's also actually disclosure right on the cover of the prospectus. And in as much as the SEC is big fans, as you know, of bringing important stuff to the attention to the reader early, we just have it right on the cover of the prospectus that they've elected to be treated as a public benefit corporation, and that has implications for the way the board will make decisions, or potentially could. There are also other anti-takeover provisions that, under the public benefit corporation statute, you do need a particular stockholder approval in order to de-elect the public benefit corporation status, or to change it, or to merge it with another company that has a different public benefit. So it just creates an additional protection in the Delaware General Corporation Law for the actual mission of these public benefit corporations. And so there is some disclosure also in the risk factors, as well as in the description of capital stock, where we talk about those provisions of Delaware law. Other sections, although we spend some time in the summary of the prospectus just mentioning the fiduciary issue as one of the key risks that stockholders should consider, and we spend a little bit of space just generally describing both public benefit corporation and certified B Corp status in the prospectus summary. Otherwise, the rest of the prospectus, by and large, Brock, looks like you would a traditional IPO, with business and MD&A really focusing on just the business and the financial performance and drivers of the company, and MD&A that you would typically see in any IPO.